The desolate terrain of Gliese 581C stretched out in endless shades of gray and rust. Jagged rocks jutted from the ground like broken teeth, and sulfuric mist clung to the air, corroding anything left unprotected. Captain Ethan Cole crouched behind an outcropping, his fingers steady on the stock of his rifle. The distant hum of alien patrols echoed through the marshland. He scanned the horizon through his scope, the crosshairs hovering over a distant silhouette. "They've got us pinned like rats in a trap," muttered Sergeant Marcus Carter, his Texan drawl tinged with frustration. He hefted his modified machine gun, the barrel still scorched from their last skirmish. "All this tech, and they're still afraid to fight fair." "Quiet," Cole said, his voice low but firm. His eyes stayed fixed on the target. The alien officer, tall and clad in shimmering armor, gestured to its subordinates with sharp, deliberate motions. Their movements were precise, too clean. It made them predictable, and predictable enemies had weaknesses. Behind them, Corporal Sarah Callahan rummaged through a makeshift toolkit, her movements brisk but calculated. "Predictable or not, they've got us beat on tech and numbers," she said without looking up. "One wrong move, and we're toast. Only if we play by their rules," Cole replied, finally lowering the rifle. He turned to the group, his gaze steady. "We're not out yet." The squad was small, just the four of them now. Months of relentless fighting had whittled their numbers down, and the Galactic Coalition showed no mercy to stragglers. The aliens viewed humanity's ballistic weapons as antiquated, a relic of a bygone era. Plasma shields deflected bullets with ease, and the Coalition's drones could spot human movements from miles away. Yet, for all their advanced technology, the Coalition lacked adaptability. They fought by the book, and Cole planned to exploit that. Private First Class Logan readjusted the controls on his drone, his face pale but determined. "Got a visual on another patrol," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Northwest quadrant, about 2 clicks out. Looks like they're setting up another perimeter." "Same pattern as before?" Cole asked. "Exactly. They're boxing us in, but they leave gaps in their sensor coverage when they move." "That's their first mistake," Callahan muttered, finally snapping a piece of alien tech into place. She held up a small device, its jagged edges sparking faintly. "EMP charge. Won't take out the big guns, but it'll fry their drones." Carter let out a low whistle. "And here I thought you just liked blowing stuff up. Adapt and survive." "Tex," Callahan shot back with a smirk. "That's the only way we're getting off this rock." Cole's voice cut through the banter. "Focus. If we're going to make it out of here, we need to think ahead. They underestimate us because we don't fight like them. Let's prove them wrong." The squad moved swiftly, navigating the dense marshland with practiced precision. Every step was deliberate, every breath measured. The sulfuric air stung their throats, and the oppressive heat pressed down like a weight. But they pressed on. Cole's mind raced with possibilities, weighing the risks of their next move. The alien patrols were growing bolder, their lines tightening around the human position. Time was running out. They reached a small ridge overlooking an alien checkpoint. A dozen Coalition soldiers milled about, their sleek weapons glinting under the faint light of the planet's distant sun. Automated turrets scanned the area, their barrels sweeping in slow, methodical arcs. "Options?" Carter asked, his voice barely a murmur. Callahan studied the scene, her eyes narrowing. "If we can get close enough to plant this," she said, holding up the EMP charge, "we can disable their comms and make some noise. Draw them away from the main group." "And then what?" Reed asked, his tone betraying his nerves. "They'll just send reinforcements." "They will," Cole agreed, "but not before we've taken out their officer. Cut the head off the snake, and the body falls apart." Reed hesitated, then nodded. He trusted Cole's judgment, even if the odds seemed insurmountable. The plan was set. Callahan slipped ahead, her movements almost silent as she approached the checkpoint. Carter readied his machine gun, his finger hovering over the trigger. Reed positioned his drone, feeding real-time data to Cole, who set up his rifle on the ridge. The first explosion shattered the stillness. Callahan's EMP charge erupted in a crackling burst, and the alien turrets powered down with a flicker. Chaos erupted as the Coalition soldiers scrambled to respond. Before they could regroup, Carter opened fire, his weapon roaring as it tore through the unsuspecting patrol. Cole's rifle barked once, then again, each shot precise. The alien officer dropped, its shimmering armor useless against the tungsten-tipped rounds. The remaining soldiers faltered, their cohesion unraveling without leadership. "Move!" Cole barked, signaling the squad to fall back. They vanished into the marshes as quickly as they had appeared, leaving the surviving aliens disoriented and scattered. Back at their hidden base, the squad regrouped, their breaths heavy but their spirits lifted. The victory was small, but it was a victory nonetheless. Carter leaned back against a rock, a grin spreading across his face. "Guess their fancy shields don't mean squat when you know where to aim." Callahan smirked, wiping the grime from her hands. "They can mock us all they want. Doesn't change the fact that we're still standing." Cole looked out at the horizon, where the alien patrols were already reforming. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of hope. "They think we're predictable," he said, his voice steady. "That's their mistake. We're just getting started." As the sulfuric mist closed in around them, the squad prepared for what lay ahead. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew one undeniable truth. Humans didn't give up. The sulfuric mist of Gliese 581C clung to everything like a second skin, obscuring the horizon and muffling sound. The humans had no choice but to adapt, turning the alien landscape into a weapon of its own. Captain Ethan Cole lay prone on a ridgeline, his rifle steady, eyes scanning through a hybrid scope that combined human optics with salvaged alien tech. His breathing was slow, methodical. Ahead, through the thick haze, he spotted the glimmer of movement, an alien patrol moving in tight formation. 2 o'clock, 30 meters. Cole murmured into his comm for walkers, one drone overhead. "I see it." Callahan's voice crackled in his ear. "Drone first." "Not yet. Wait for it to move into the blind zone." Behind the ridgeline, Private Logan Reed knelt beside his drone console, his face illuminated by faint blue light. "Blind zone's coming up in 10 seconds, he whispered. His hands hovered over the controls, fingers twitching with anticipation. Sergeant Marcus Carter crouched a few meters away, his machine gun cradled in his arms. "I hope you two know what you're doing," he muttered. "One wrong move, and we're alien chow." Callahan grinned from where she was setting up a makeshift tripwire. "Relax, Texas. If I screw up, you'll be the first to know." The patrol entered the blind zone, the alien drone momentarily losing its connection to the main network. "Now!" Cole ordered. Reed's drone zipped into action, a small, silent silhouette darting through the mist. It released an EMP pulse, and the alien drone dropped from the sky, landing with a muted thud. The walkers froze, their automated targeting systems scrambling to recalibrate. Carter didn't hesitate. He opened fire, his weapon roaring to life and cutting through the stunned patrol like a hot knife through butter. The aliens barely had time to react before they were down, their shimmering armor useless against the combined onslaught of human ingenuity and old-fashioned firepower. "Clear," Cole confirmed, his voice steady. "Good work." The squad moved quickly to scavenge the fallen soldiers and their drone. Callahan was already prying open a shattered shield generator, her hands deftly navigating the unfamiliar technology. "This'll do nicely," she muttered, pulling out a glowing core. "Give me an hour, and I can rig something that'll knock out a whole squad shields." "You're a scary woman," Carter said, his tone half admiring, half joking. "And you're a walking cliché," she shot back with a smirk. Cole didn't join in the banter. He was already scanning the horizon, his mind working through the next steps. The aliens were adapting, tightening their patrol patterns and deploying heavier firepower. They weren't unbeatable, but every victory came at a cost. The squad's resources were dwindling, and exhaustion was beginning to show. "Let's move," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "We need to stay ahead of them." The squad slipped deeper into the marshes, their movements deliberate and silent. Every step was a calculated risk. The sulfuric mud sucked at their boots, and the acrid air burned their lungs. But they pressed on. The terrain, once a hostile enemy, had become an ally. The thick mist obscured their movements, and the unstable ground made it difficult for alien vehicles to pursue them. After hours of trekking, they reached a small clearing where the remains of an alien skirmisher lay half-submerged in the muck. Its sleek design was marred by scorch marks and jagged tears, evidence of its violent end. Callahan approached it like a predator stalking wounded prey, her eyes lighting up with possibilities. "This is a gold mine," she said, already pulling tools from her pack. "With parts from this, I can boost our drone's range and maybe rig a stronger EMP. Make it quick," Cole said, setting up a perimeter. "Reed, you're on watch. Carter, help her with whatever she needs." "You got it, boss," Carter said, hefting his gun. "Don't worry, Callahan. I'll keep you safe. Just don't break anything," she replied, her focus already on the wreckage. Reed climbed a nearby ridge, his drone hovering beside him as he scanned the area. The young private was still green, but he'd proven himself resourceful. Cole joined him, the two of them settling into a tense silence as they watched for any sign of movement. "You think this'll work?" Reed asked after a while, his voice low. "It has to," Cole replied. "We don't have a choice." Reed nodded, his expression grim. He didn't press further, but his hands tightened on his console, his determination evident. Below them, Callahan worked with relentless focus, her hands moving with a precision born of necessity. She muttered to herself as she connected wires and adjusted circuits, occasionally glancing at Carter, who stood guard with his weapon at the ready. "Done," she finally said, holding up a modified EMP device. "This'll knock out anything with a shield or an AI link within a 50-meter radius." "Impressive," Cole said, rejoining the group. "Let's hope it works." As night fell, the squad set up a makeshift camp, their exhaustion finally catching up to them. They ate in silence, the weight of their situation hanging heavy in the air. Cole studied each of them, noting the tension in their shoulders, the way their eyes darted to every shadow. They were tired, but they weren't broken. Not yet. "Tomorrow, we hit their supply line," he said, breaking the silence. "Reed's drone will scout ahead. Callahan, you'll rig this EMP to disable their convoy. Carter and I will provide cover. And if it doesn't work," Reed asked, his voice quiet. Cole met his gaze, his expression hard. "Then we adapt, like we always do." The young private nodded, the doubt in his eyes replaced by resolve. Callahan smirked, tossing the EMP device between her hands. "It'll work. Trust me." Carter chuckled, leaning back against a rock. "If it doesn't, I'll just shoot everything that moves." Simple enough. Cole allowed himself a small smile, the first in days. They had a plan, however fragile, and that was enough for now. As they settled in for the night, the sulfuric mist thickened, cloaking them in its embrace. The battle was far from over, but they had proven one thing. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology or its firepower. It was its ability to adapt and survive, no matter the odds. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they rested. The alien city loomed ahead, a monolith of gleaming spires and pulsating energy fields. Even through the dense mist of Gliese 581c, its vibrant lights cut through the gloom, casting eerie reflections on the sulfuric puddles below. Captain Ethan Cole adjusted his rifle scope, his sharp eyes scanning the perimeter. Alien guards patrolled in rigid formations, their movements precise and synchronized. The main gate shimmered with a plasma barrier, a defensive measure that had repelled every human attempt to breach it. Until now. "This is insane," Private Logan Reed whispered, crouched beside Cole. His fingers danced nervously over the controls of his drone, which hovered silently at their side. "We're 4 people against an entire garrison." "It's not about numbers," Cole replied, his voice steady. "It's about hitting them where it hurts." Behind them, Corporal Sarah Callahan worked quickly, her hands a blur as she rigged the salvaged EMP device to a stolen alien power core. The glowing contraption hummed with barely contained energy, casting flickering shadows across her determined face. "This'll overload their comms and short out the gate for a good 60 seconds, she said. "More than enough time to make our move." 60 seconds, huh? Sergeant Marcus Carter grinned as he adjusted the heavy plasma rifle slung over his shoulder, a trophy from their last raid. "Plenty of time for me to make some noise." "Just stick to the plan, Tex," Cole warned, not take his eyes off the city. "We go in quiet, take out the comms hub, and plant the beacon. Earth's fleet does the rest." "Assuming they get here in time," Reed muttered, though he quickly silenced himself under Cole's sharp glance. Callahan stood, wiping her hands on her fatigues. "It's ready. Once I hit the trigger, we move fast. No second chances." Cole nodded, his expression resolute. "Reed, keep the drone overhead and feed us their movements. Callahan, you're with me on the comms hub. Carter, cover our rear and be ready to hold them off if things go sideways." "Sideways?" Carter chuckled. "This whole mission's sideways, Captain." Cole didn't respond. His focus was already on the city and the high-stakes objective ahead. With a final check of their gear, the squad moved into position. Callahan triggered the EMP, and the device released a high-pitched whine before erupting in a burst of invisible energy. The city gate flickered and then went dark, its once impenetrable plasma barrier collapsing in on itself. At the same moment, lights across the perimeter dimmed and the alien patrols froze, their helmets flickering as their neural links struggled to reconnect. "Go!" Cole ordered, his voice cutting through the tense silence. The team slipped through the gate like shadows, their movements swift and precise. Reed's drone hovered above, its sensors feeding a constant stream of data into their earpieces. 2 guards left corridor, he whispered. Another 3 heading toward the south wing. Cole raised his hand, signaling a halt. He motioned for Carter, who nodded and crept forward, his plasma rifle at the ready. With surgical precision, Carter took out the 2 guards with a pair of well-placed shots, their bodies crumpling silently to the ground. Callahan and Cole pressed forward, navigating the labyrinthine corridors toward the comms hub. The alien architecture was sleek and angular, its surfaces pulsing with a faint, otherworldly glow. The hum of distant machinery reverberated through the walls, a constant reminder of the advanced technology they were up against. "Almost there," Callahan whispered, glancing at the map displayed on her wrist. "One more turn." They rounded the corner and froze. Ahead, a group of alien soldiers stood guard outside the comms hub, their weapons drawn and their shields active. Clearly, not all systems had been affected by the EMP. "Reed?" Cole whispered. "Working on it," Reed replied, his voice tense. "Give me a second to—" "No time," Cole interrupted. He signaled to Callahan to stay back and raised his rifle. Taking a deep breath, he lined up his shot. The first alien fell before it could react, a tungsten round piercing its shield and armor. Chaos erupted as the remaining soldiers turned, their weapons firing in wild arcs. Carter appeared at the other end of the corridor, his plasma rifle roaring to life. The aliens were caught in a deadly crossfire, their shields flaring and failing under the relentless assault. In seconds, it was over. "Clear," Cole said, lowering his rifle. "Move." Callahan sprinted to the comms hub, pulling a small device from her pack. She plugged it into the alien console, her fingers flying over the controls as she bypassed the system's defenses. "Beacon's live," she announced, her voice tight with concentration. "Earth's fleet will have our coordinates in 3 minutes." 3 minutes is a lifetime, Carter muttered, glancing down the corridor. They're gonna come down on us hard. As if on cue, the distant sound of alien reinforcements echoed through the halls. Reed's voice crackled over the comm, Captain. We've got incoming. Lots of them. Cole's jaw tightened. Carter, hold this position. Callahan, finish up and get ready to move. Reed, keep that drone in the air and give us updates. The first wave of reinforcements arrived moments later, their energy weapons lighting up the corridor in bursts of deadly plasma. Carter held his ground, his plasma rifle spitting fire in return. Callahan ducked behind the console, working frantically to secure the beacon signal. Almost there, she shouted over the din of battle. Cole took a position beside Carter, his sniper rifle picking off targets with unerring precision. Each shot was a calculated strike, aimed to disrupt the enemy's advance. But for every alien that fell, two more seemed to take its place. Captain, we've got a problem. Reed's voice cut in, panic lacing his words. There's a heavy unit heading your way. Looks like some kind of tank. Fantastic, Carter grumbled, reloading his weapon. Got a plan for that, Captain? Callahan, Cole said, turning to her. Can you rig something? She glanced at the half-dismantled console, then at the stolen power, core still sparking faintly on the floor. A wild grin spread across her face. Give me 2 minutes. You've got 1, Cole replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. The sound of the approaching tank grew louder, its massive form finally emerging into view. It was a hulking monstrosity of alien engineering, bristling with plasma cannons and heavy armor. Carter opened fire, but his shots barely scratched its surface. Ready, Callahan shouted, rolling the power core toward the tank. It stopped just beneath the behemoth, its glowing surface pulsing ominously. Fire in the hole, she yelled. The explosion rocked the corridor, a blinding flash of light and heat that sent shockwaves through the walls. When the dust cleared, the tank was nothing but smoldering wreckage. The comms crackled to life. This is Earth Fleet Command, a voice announced. Beacon received. Reinforcements inbound. Cole allowed himself a rare smile. We're not done yet, he said. Let's finish this.